They bullied the new black girl. 60 seconds later, they were on their knees begging. Before we start the story, write in the comments from which part of the world you're watching today. The bullies had picked on the new black girl. Big mistake. Within minutes, they were begging for forgiveness. "Look who the wind blew into our school," laughed Tyler Morrison, deliberately blocking Zara's path in the crowded hallway of Lincoln Academy. Although they didn't send an ugly monkey this time, the hallway fell silent. 50 students stopped to watch, some holding their breath, others already pulling out their cell phones to record what promised to be another episode of public humiliation orchestrated by the school's most feared trio. Zara Williams, 17, stood motionless. It was only her second day at the prestigious Connecticut private school, and she was already experiencing what her mother had tried to avoid by saving every penny to get her out of her local public school. "What?" Jake Sullivan asked sarcastically, moving around Tyler's right. "Or you don't speak English, do you?" The third member of the group, Brandon Pierce, closed the circle to her left. "Maybe she's used to eating bananas instead of apples for lunch," he said, making obscene gestures that drew nervous laughter from some onlookers. Zara took a deep breath, and something interesting happened in her eyes. It wasn't fear. It wasn't humiliation. It was a dangerous calm, like the silence before a devastating storm. "Excuse me," she said, her soft voice cutting through the air like a sharp blade. "I have a class to go to." Tyler laughed even harder. "Her class? Honey, you're in the wrong school. Yours is across town." That's when Zara smiled. A small, almost imperceptible smile, but one that made some of the more attentive students instinctively back away. There was something incongruous about the smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something the others didn't. "Interesting," she murmured, tilting her head slightly. "Tyler Morrison, the mayor's son. Jake Sullivan, the father owned a car dealership. Brandon Pierce, the family owned the largest law firm in town." The three boys exchanged surprised glances. How had she learned this information? "You really think you can do this here, in front of everyone, and it won't come back to haunt you?" Zara continued, her voice still calm, but now with a confidence that for the first time made Tyler hesitate. "Listen here, you," Tyler began, taking a threatening step toward her. Zara didn't move. "I'd think twice before finishing that sentence," she said, her eyes staring at him with an intensity that sent a chill down his spine. There was something about her posture, the way she held her fists, relaxed but poised, the way she stood, small details that went unnoticed by most, but were immediately recognized by a few students whose older brothers served in the military or practiced martial arts. "What's going on here?" Principal Reynolds' voice cut through the tension like an axe. Tyler's expression immediately changed to the model student mask he'd honed over the years. "Nothing special, Principal. We were just welcoming our new classmate." The principal glanced suspiciously at the circle of students, then at Zara, who maintained the same calm expression. "Ms. Williams, is everything all right?" "Fine," Zara replied, still smiling her enigmatic smile. "Just getting to know my new classmates. I'm sure we'll get along great." As the crowd dispersed and the three boys walked away with hateful glares, Zara walked calmly to her locker. Her hands weren't shaking, her breathing was steady, and her eyes were blazing with a determination that could only come from someone who had lived through far worse storms. There in front of all those curious and somewhat admiring eyes, she kept a secret that would change the entire dynamic of the school. A secret that Tyler, Jake, and Brandon would discover in the worst possible way. If this story of courage and justice intrigued you, be sure to subscribe to see how a simple attempt at intimidation would turn into the biggest mistake these boys ever made. Over the next 3 days, Tyler and his friends would turn Zara's life into a carefully orchestrated hell. But there was something they couldn't understand. Why didn't she ever react with fear? On Wednesday, they found her books strewn across the girls' restroom, wet and torn. On Thursday, her backpack was hanging from the tallest tree in the courtyard, causing half the school to laugh. On Friday, someone had spray-painted words on her desk in the cafeteria that made several teachers turn away in embarrassment. "She's going to break," Jake whispered, watching Zara calmly wipe down her dirty desk. "Everyone has a breaking point," Tyler chuckled. "I bet by Monday she'll be begging to transfer to another school." What they didn't know was that every humiliation was meticulously documented. Zara quietly photographed every act of vandalism, every threatening note left in her locker, every moment three boys approached her with their cell phones ready to record her reaction. In fact, Zara Williams wasn't just a black girl who transferred from a public school. At age 12, after witnessing her little brother get beat up by a gang of teenagers in Chicago, she began training in boxing and jiu-jitsu at a local gym. 5 years later, she became a state junior champion in both sports and attended Lincoln Academy on a full athletic scholarship. Her mother, Dr. Sharon Williams, insisted that they keep her athletic talents a secret at first. "Honey, let them get to know you as a student first. Then they'll find out who you really are." But Tyler Morrison had made a fatal mistake. He didn't know that Professor Marcus Thompson, a former boxing coach, Olympic gold medalist and current gym teacher at the school, had already spotted Zara's instinctive movements on her first day of classes. "Can I talk to you after class?" Professor Thompson asked discreetly on Friday. In his office, surrounded by trophies and photographs of famous athletes, he got straight to the point. "You fight, don't you? I recognize your stance, your balance, the way you hold your hands." Zara hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "My mother chose not to mention it on the registration form." "Clever, but the Morrison boys are bullying you, and it can't go on like that." He leaned forward. "There is a way to resolve this without violence. But you have to trust me." Mr. Thompson had seen dozens of cases like this in his career. Kids from powerful families who thought they could bully anyone they wanted without consequence. But this time, they had targeted the wrong person. "Do you trust the school system?" he asked. Zara laughed bitterly. 3 formal complaints have been filed against Tyler this year alone, all dismissed. His father funds half the projects at this school. Then we'll do it differently. There's a school board meeting on Monday. There will be several influential parents in attendance, including some who don't like the Morrisons very much. Mr. Thompson opened a drawer and pulled out a form. "I'd like you to sign up for a special martial arts demonstration for the school's investors." "A demonstration?" "Officially, it's to showcase our athletic programs and attract more sponsors. But in practice," he smiled, "it'll be a great opportunity for Tyler and his friends to find out who they're really getting into." Over the weekend, while Tyler posted Instagram stories mocking the pathetic new girl, Zara trained intensely in her basement. Each punch to the punching bag carried the pent-up anger of a week of humiliation. Every move was honed to account for the scornful looks she would receive. Her mother watched her with concern. "Are you sure this is the right way, honey?" "Mom, I tried to do it their way. I was polite. I ignored the taunts. I reported them to the system. Nothing worked." Zara paused her practice, sweat glistening on her forehead. "Now I'm going to do it my way." On Monday morning, Tyler was especially excited. He had planned her ultimate humiliation. During recess in front of the entire school, he would force Zara to publicly beg them to stop teasing her. "She's going to break today," he told Jake and Brandon as he walked down the hall. "I bet you $50 she's going to cry." They didn't notice that Zara was right behind them, hearing every word. Nor did they notice the small smile that played across her lips as she quietly checked her cell phone. "Demonstration confirmed for 3 p.m. Gym. All investors present. Show them what you've got. Professor Thompson." At 2:45 p.m., as Tyler prepared for his final showdown against a girl he thought would be easy to beat, Zara was in the girls' locker room, putting on protective gear and warming up the muscles she'd trained for years for moments like this. It was then, as everyone laughed, that something extraordinary began to form. Not just in the school environment, but mostly in the determined gaze that now burned with an intensity that made some in the room realize the real show was just beginning. Tyler Morrison had never felt so confident. At 2:30 p.m., surrounded by Jake and Brandon in the school courtyard, he watched Zara sit alone on a back bench, seemingly as vulnerable as ever. "She's going to beg today," he muttered, pulling out his cell phone to film what would become his masterpiece of humiliation. 50 people are going to watch her cry and apologize for existing." Jake laughed out loud. "I bet she's going to run home and cry to her mom." "If she makes it home," Brandon added, cracking his knuckles, "after today, she'll know exactly where she belongs." What none of them realized was that Zara wasn't alone on the bench. Hidden between the pages of her history textbook, Her cell phone recorded every vitriolic word that came out of their mouths. 3 days of digital evidence, dozens of photos of vandalism, printouts of threatening messages, all meticulously cataloged and ready for use. At 3 p.m., a martial arts demonstration began in the school gym. Lincoln Academy's elite were there in full force. Millionaire parents, school board members, potential investors, and, to Tyler's surprise, his own father, Mayor Morrison. Today, we introduce our newest athletic scholarship recipient, Professor Thompson announced, his voice booming across the packed room. Zara Williams, state junior mixed martial arts champion. Tyler felt the blood drain from his face. The state champion, the girl he had spent a week humiliating, was a professional fighter. "No way," Jake whispered, his confidence gone. Zara walked onto the mat with the grace of a predator. There was no trace left of the timid, vulnerable girl he had thought he had subdued. Her movements were smooth, precise, filled with a silent power that had half the room leaning forward, mesmerized. To demonstrate her skills, Professor Thompson continued, Zara will be taking on 3 of our volunteers from the school's wrestling program. The 3 wrestlers, all bigger and older than she, strode confidently forward. The first lasted exactly 15 seconds before being pinned with a perfect armbar. The second, 20 seconds in, was knocked down by a throw that drew applause from the crowd. The third, the strongest of the trio, lasted an impressive 30 seconds before being forced to give up with a leg lock that could have broken his knee if Zara had wanted it to. The audience erupted in applause. Parents and investors stood up, impressed by the display of pure technique and emotional control. "Incredible," one investor shouted. "This young woman is an exceptional talent." But Zara wasn't done. Stepping up to the microphone, her voice came through the sound system, calm and crystal clear. "I'd like to take this opportunity to address an important issue regarding bullying and racial discrimination in our school." The gym instantly went silent. Tyler felt like the floor was falling out from under him. "Over the past 3 days, I have been the target of repeated harassment by 3 students at this institution." Zara pulled out her tablet and plugged it into the projector. "Tyler Morrison, Jake Sullivan, and Brandon Pierce." The first image appeared on the giant screen. Tyler, Jake, and Brandon vandalizing Zara's locker, clearly visible from the security camera. They hadn't noticed. "This is just part of the evidence I collected," Zara said, her voice polite as she showed photo after photo. The threatening messages, the vandalism, the moment they poured glue into her backpack. Mayor Morrison stood up, his face red with shame and anger. "Tyler Morrison, what does this mean?" But Zara wasn't finished. The next screen showed audio of 3 boys talking. Their voices were clearly audible, making racist remarks and planning to bully the new girl. "At least they didn't send an ugly monkey this time," Tyler's voice echoed through the speakers, causing shock throughout the room. "Maybe she's gotten used to eating bananas instead of apples for lunch," Brandon continued, causing an outraged murmur from the parents present. Jake tried to hide behind a pillar, but it was too late. All cameras and eyes were focused on the trio who, just moments before, had felt invincible. "All this week," Zara continued, "I have remained calm and collected evidence because I have learned that the best way to fight injustice is not with violence, but with truth and consequences." Mr. Thompson took the microphone. "What you just witnessed represents everything this institution rejects. Bullying, racial discrimination, and abuse of power will not be tolerated." Principal Reynolds walked onto the stage, his face a mask of professional indignation. "Mr. Morrison, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Pierce, you are suspended indefinitely. There will be a full investigation, and the proper authorities will be notified of documented hate crimes." Tyler tried to approach his father, but Mayor Morrison pushed him away with a sharp gesture. "You have dishonored me, son. You have dishonored our family and our city." "Dad, I can explain," Tyler began, but his voice was a pathetic whisper. "There is no explanation," the mayor growled. "You will learn the consequences in a way you will never forget." Jake and Brandon had already been led away by their furious parents. Their families faced not only public humiliation, but potential criminal charges for hate crimes. As chaos unfolded around her, Zara remained in the center of the carpet, calm as a queen on her throne. There was no malicious triumph in her eyes, only the quiet satisfaction of someone who had seen justice served at the right temperature. As the revelations piled up and the mask fell, one question remained. How would three boys who thought they were untouchable thanks to wealth and privilege react when they discovered that their actions had consequences that extended far beyond the school walls? 6 months later, Lincoln Academy was unrecognizable. What had once been a toxic environment where privilege and prejudice reigned supreme was now a national model of inclusion and respect. Zara Williams, now captain of the school's martial arts team and student body president, walked the same halls where she had been humiliated. But this time, students of all ages approached her not with fear or disdain, but with genuine admiration and requests for advice. "Zara, can you help me?" asked Madison, a timid 14-year-old freshman. "Some of the boys in the 8th grade are bothering me." "Sure," Zara replied with a warm smile. "We'll talk after class. And remember, you're never alone here." The mentoring program Zara created helped more than 200 students. Her self-defense classes were in great demand, and what impressed everyone most was how she taught not only fighting techniques, but mostly self-confidence and dignity. Mr. Thompson watched proudly from the doorway of her classroom. "She changed this school more in 6 months than I did in 15 years, he commented to Principal Reynolds. "And to think we almost lost that talent to 3 spoiled boys," the principal sighed. "Oh, Tyler, Jake, and Brandon?" Their stories took very different turns after the devastating revelation. Tyler Morrison never recovered from the scandal. His father, the mayor, lost his re-election bid by a humiliating margin after a video of his son's racist comments went viral across the country. The family was forced to move to another state, but the internet never forgets. Tyler, now 18, was rejected by 17 universities in a row, all citing character issues in their rejection letters. Jake Sullivan discovered that words have consequences when his father lost millions of dollars in contracts after an orchestrated social media boycott. The family's car dealership went bankrupt within 4 months. Jake now worked at a car wash across town, where his co-workers knew his story all too well from videos that still circulate online. Brandon Pierce faced perhaps the most ironic consequence. His father, one of the most respected lawyers in the region, was sued for negligence after the scandal. Several clients discovered that racism ran in the family and canceled their contracts. The family law firm closed its doors, and Brandon was forced to watch his parents divorce in a bitter legal battle where even his own colleagues refused to represent them. But the most astonishing transformation happened to someone no one expected. Mayor Morrison, shocked by the public disgrace, sought out Zara on a rainy April day. She found him sitting alone in the school parking lot, a broken man in an ordinary car, no longer the official BMW of the city. "Miss Williams," he said, his voice shaking, "I know I have no right to ask for anything, but can I talk to you?" Zara looked at him with the same calm she always showed in conflict. "Of course," she said. "I failed as a father," he admitted, tears streaming down his face. "I raised a monster because I never taught him respect. Consequences. You did in one day what it should have taken me 17 years to do." "Mr. Morrison," Zara said softly, "it's never too late to start doing the right thing." That conversation changed them both forever. Morrison began volunteering at community centers, dedicating his life to repairing the damage done by years of neglect. Tyler, reluctantly at first, began accompanying his father on these events. It would be a long, hard road, but it was a start. At graduation, Zara was voted top graduating student. Standing in front of hundreds of people, including representatives from the colleges that had fought for her with full scholarships, she gave a speech that would be remembered for decades. "A year and a half ago, I came here as a scared little girl trying to hide who I really was. I thought it would be easier to be small, invisible, harmless." Her voice carried clearly across the packed auditorium. "But I have learned that our greatest strength comes not from our ability to hide, but from our courage to show ourselves." She paused, her gaze meeting that of Professor Thompson, who smiled proudly. "When we face injustice, we have 2 choices. We can give in and let it define us, or we can stand up and redefine what is possible. True victory is not destroying those who have hurt us, but creating something so powerful that they will never dare destroy us again." The audience burst into applause. In the front rows, her mother wept with pride. In the back, Morrison applauded, tears in his eyes. Tyler is at her side, still struggling with how he got so far off track. 2 years later, Zara has received her first full scholarship to Harvard, where she will study law with a concentration in civil rights. Her goal was clear: to help others find their voice and fight for justice within the system. Professor Thompson, now retired, kept in regular contact with his most distinguished former student. "You know what your greatest victory was?" he asked during one of their conversations. "What?" "You didn't just change those boys. You changed generations of students who went to that school. You taught them that true strength comes from dignity, not arrogance." The lesson Zara left for the world was simple but transformative. When we face prejudice and injustice, our response determines not only our character, but also the world we choose to create. She proved that the best revenge is not to stoop to the level of those who hurt us, but to rise so high that they can never reach us. What about you? Have you ever faced a situation where you had to choose between hiding or revealing yourself? Have you ever had to decide whether to take revenge or seek justice? Share your experiences in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more inspiring stories that show how courage and dignity always triumph over prejudice and cruelty.